Hey there everyone, this is Joe in general, your resident reason and evidence enthusiast. It's your weekly Bitcoin price analysis update. It's Wednesday, the 9th of August 2017. As always, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my new subscribers. I have a total of 4,492, thanks to all the newbies that came on board this past 7 days or so. And quickly, I'd like to give a preview of what's coming ahead in the next 7 days, roughly. I will be doing at least 2 more videos in the next 7 days. Now, one of them will be a mega mini crypto analysis. I've done a few of these before. It's a lot simpler than it sounds. It's just a video of me doing an analysis of a few altcoins in one video rather than just, like my weekly Bitcoin video, just doing Bitcoin. So my last one was about a month ago where I looked at Digibyte, Komodo, and Ubic. Next one, I'm not exactly sure which coins I'm going to look at, but I know at least one of them will probably be, or very likely be, Sia coin, which I've talked about numerous times before. I may have a relook at some of the other coins that I've talked about before. That remains to be seen though, but you will be getting another mega mini crypto analysis video. And also I will be, and I have been looking at a few different ICOs, initial coin offerings, that I'm considering getting into coming up soon. I will be doing, I promise I will do a video on a particular one. I don't know exactly which one it is yet. I'm going to, have a re-look at them and make up my mind in the next couple of days, but I will be doing one of those, and that is 100% certain. You will be getting one of those in the next 7 days, I promise. This time for sure. So that's what's coming up in the next 7 days. If you want to stay updated, of course, hit the subscribe button. So straight on to the analysis, we have to have a quick look at where it was last week, a quick recap. And this is my video from last week, August the 3rd. We're hovering around 2,740 US dollars. Now that's the Bitstamp exchange price. It's priced in US dollars, as I said, and it's the bitcoinwisdom.com website that I usually use. And this video had a whole bunch of lines. It was getting really confusing. I have since removed a whole bunch of them. But if you can just see here, I was talking in particular about this line that I drew in, this trend line, and this trend line right here. And that was forming an ascending triangle pattern. As you can see, there was 2 points where it topped out at about 2,940, and then there was some incremental higher lows, and that creates that ascending triangle pattern. Now, it doesn't happen every single time, but an ascending triangle pattern tends to indicate more often than not that the price is going to go higher and eventually break through that line there. Now, it doesn't normally happen, as I think I said in the last video, it doesn't normally happen. The price doesn't creep all the way up to the corner, to the very 11th hour, and then suddenly break through. It tends to happen a little bit before the decision gets made. Now, you guys have been following the price. You know what where the price has gone since then, so no need to do a big reveal, but let's just have a look. Okay, and we're in all-time high territory again. So we've smashed through 2980, and we're at a high of 3,490 US dollars again on the Bitstamp exchange. And as you can see here, that's that ascending triangle. If you can imagine that line drawn in there and the line drawn in right there. The corner is probably around about there. So as you can see, it didn't come all the way up to the very corner. It did bust out around, well, it didn't around here. It busted out right here. Now we'll quickly punch in and spend a tiny little bit of time seeing how we got to 3,490. I think it's important to see how you get there, just to have a look at patterns and to recognize patterns. The more often you recognize patterns, the better you may be later on down the track at predicting where prices may go. So after we broke through this long-term trend line here and this other trend line here, and I will come back, I'll zoom out and talk about those trend lines in a second. We did punch up to about a high of 3,200 and what's that, 3,230. And as you can see, we had a pattern of, again, some higher lows. So if you imagine a line drawn in there and a line drawn in there, that's another little ascending triangle pattern, and we did break out of that. It tends to indicate higher prices coming. Not always, but tends to. Did break up to about 3,340 roughly, a little bit of a consolidation. It was looking like at one point, if you can sort of imagine this line drawn here and another line drawn here, it's looking like it was forming more of a symmetrical triangle pattern. In fact, look, I'll just, while we're here, I'll just draw it in just so you can see. The price was about there. The price is hovering around about here roughly when I saw this. It's kind of very, very rough indeed. It's kind of like that. And it was forming more of a symmetrical triangle pattern. And that tends to lend to a bit more indecision. The price could, go either way. It could break down through there, break up. So rather than, if this was flat, if this line here was completely flat, then I'd be thinking, oh, descending triangle pattern could certainly break down, but it didn't look like it was doing that. And we did break up from there. And then we hit that high. So many new all-time highs in a very short amount of time. We did hit $3,430 roughly, and didn't spend much time consolidating. And then, as I said, we got to that 3,490. Did you like that nice little weather report? Good. I'm glad. All these lines and patterns and all that, it does sometimes feel like a weather report. But actually, interestingly, in the last hour or so, about last hour or two, we have seen a consolidation, a small consolidation back down. Let's punch out maybe to the 6 hour. A consolidation. We have not broken through the 34.90, and we've broken back down, a little bit of a consolidation down to, where are we, about $3,190 roughly. So two questions are, well, the main question is, where is the price going to go from here? And where could the price go if it breaks down lower? And obviously we'll talk about higher prices as well. I guess it's more interesting to talk about lower prices at the moment than higher prices, because I'm probably going to stick to my usual higher price target that I've been talking about in the last few videos. So you're going to hear that in a sec, but we'll just talk about the prices where it could hit. So let's go back and talk about these two trend lines right here. So maybe I need to go to the 3-day. Now, actually, I'll even go to the weekly. Subscribers to my channel are very aware of these trend channels right here. We were in this one for a while, and then we've been hovering in this trend channel for a while, and this used to be the resistance line, and that became the support line, and then this was the resistance line, and more recently, and now 100% without a shadow of a doubt, it is now the support line, and this now is the new trend channel. We have certainly yet to reach the top end of the trend channel, but that's going to come, well, pretty soon, I think. Certainly by the end of the year, without a doubt, and I think probably more higher prices from there, but we won't get ahead of ourselves. Excuse me. So this line here, let me maybe go back into the 12. This line here, definitely the major, in my opinion, of course, not financial advice, the major support trend line right now. So that's where I think if the prices are going to quote unquote crash back down, that's where I think they would bottom out currently. Could we see a little bit of a dip below? Yeah, sure. But I think coming anywhere down here and below in this trend channel is certainly well in the rear view mirror now. I definitely think you're going to see this as the major support trend line for now. The other trend line I'm looking at, and let's look at the prices, of course. If this was to break down to this trend line here, if it was to do it in the next hour, then you'd be looking at a price of, if you can look over here to the right, all the way over here, then you'd be looking at a price of what, 2,866. However, that smacks into, or it's below the $3,000 psychological barrier, and it's also below the old high here of 2,980. You can call it 3,000. So even then, if it did come down to what, 2,870, 80 something, it wouldn't stay there for very long, in my opinion. So definitely think the bottom end, the very bottom right here is that trend channel, that trend line. And this is the new trend channel right here. Let's talk about this trend line. I have spoken about that not too long ago, but this is connecting a few key higher lows, and it's going back to May of this year. And so you've got at least one, let me count them. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times that this trend line was a support line, and then we did obviously break down through to 1830, and we did break all the way back, a really quick rise, which was very positive for the prices I talked about a couple of videos ago. Didn't come back down, and it did then, this trend line, become a level of resistance a couple of times. I think this trend line might still be in play. What I would suggest is that this line right here, as I said, is the major support line, and this one might become the minor support line. So what you may see, if the prices are going to consolidate down further, you may see a test of this line, and this might be the test line. This might be the, let's see how far we can get down. Let's see how far we can get down, and let's test it. Let's test the waters as such. So we may come down to here and just bounce off. Possibly, it might even be just a pure bounce off line, but I think it's still in play. So that's like minor support trend line, major support trend line right here. But if we were to come down here in the next hour, the next few hours, or whatever, the next few days, you'd be looking at a price range of between about 3,100 roughly to, let's a few days later, to about, say, 3,200 roughly. And now, of course, as prices go higher and as time moves on, if this trend line is still in play, you'll see that just getting higher and higher up there. So this could possibly be a long-term trend line. Again, the minor trend line, and this is definitely the major trend line at this stage. Now, what I would like to see, still talking about lower prices, what I would like to see sooner rather than later is a test of this old high here of 2980, or you could probably more better call it, that's a word, that's a phrase, more better. You could better call it the $3,000 psychological mark. Because as you're probably fully aware, prices do tend, after having a large rise, do tend to come back down and at least touch or meet a previous significant high. That's certainly happened in the past. In the recent past, I mean, go back to what, November 2015, when we came up to what, about $500. Then we broke through that, got up to $775 roughly, and crashed, quote unquote, retraced all the way back down to around that 500 level. Then after 775, breaking through there, we came up to about, what's that, 1150, and then lo and behold, what do you know, we came down to meet that old high right here. Now we actually busted way through that old high here when we came up to here, and there has been times where we have not come back down to meet a high, so it's not a 100% predictor of where price is going to go. So for example, when we came up to this recent high of 2980, we only saw a test down to 1830 rather than down to 1350. So it's not foolproof, but it's if you're familiar with charts, you'll recognize that it tends to happen much more often than not. So as I said, what I'd like to see is a test now rather than a test later. I'd love for it to drop from this high, you know, 3,490, drop $490 now and test 3,000 rather than having a major rise up to the next major price level, which I'll talk about in a second, and then have a much more of what could be quoted as a crash all the way back down. So let's get down to 3,000 now. Here's a great buying opportunity. If it hits even if it hits this line, what a great little buying opportunity in my opinion. Let's have a test of that line now. Not that I can tell the price what to do, of course, but it would be good to see it now rather than later when it's at much higher prices, in my opinion. So moving up higher from here, I've certainly talked about these price levels before, and I'm going to stick with them in the last few videos. But if we take a look at the exponential Fibonacci from this high of 29.38 and the low of 18.30. Right here, we've got the exponential Fibonacci calculator. This is available for download. I'll put a link to it. It's free of charge. If you want to send me a little bit of cryptocurrency donation for that, not a problem. I won't say no. I'll put a link to my BTC address, but this is free of charge. I'll put the link. All you do is you input the high 29.38 and then you input the low 18.30. I've already done it for you, and hit enter, and everything's automatically calculated. So where we've come up so far, 3,490, where does that sit on this calculator? Well, it sits a little bit under the 1.382 Fibonacci mark of 3,520, which is kind of right about there. Look at that, because we're using a logarithmic chart. The move from 3,490 to 3,520 is just a tiny little blip. Look at that, even a tiny little blip to 4,000. Look how small that is. I can't even get up to there at that point because of bitcoinwisdom.com website. But that is the 1.382 Fibonacci level. Now, the 1.382 is somewhat of a key level, but I think much more likely, and this coincides with, or closely coincides with, the prices I've been talking about in my last few videos. You've got this 1.618 of 3,937. Now, when we're coming up to these kind of prices, particularly on the logarithmic chart, the percentage increase difference. So let me say that again. The percentage increase difference between 3,937 to 4,000 to 4,100 is only a very small percentage increase. Okay, so it's not out of the realm of possibility to suggest that this 1.618 level of 39.37, you could, I think, comfortably call it the 4,000 psychological barrier, you know, a nice even number. And it does coincide with with that number that I've been talking about for quite a while, which is taking the exponential Fibonacci calculation of the high, a very old high, back in November of 2013 of 1,163, and the low in what was about January of 2015 of $152.40. You guys have seen this numerous times, I think all my subscribers have. If you're new to these videos, then you haven't seen it. 152.40. And lo and behold, the 1.618 level, again from this old high of 1163 and the low of 152.40, is 4,083. So I did talk about this in the video 4,083 I do see. That's from a couple of months ago now. I think that's well within a margin of error when you have a look at that other one, the 29.38 to 18.30, that 1.618 of 3,937. Again, because we're on a logarithmic timescale, that the logarithmic chart, the percentage increase difference is very, very minute. So I think we're still on track to see that high of around about between $4,000 to $4,100 before we see another major price correction. But moving up from there, going up to that, we've got this, if we stay on with this high of 29.38 and the low of 18.30, you've got the 1.5 Fibonacci level of 3,723. You could comfortably call that somewhere between 3,700 and 3,750. That might be another little level when there might be a little level of resistance. But I think the major one is that around about that 4,000, between 4,000 to 4,100 level, which I think is the next major point. So we've talked about where it could go down to, talked about the trend lines, talked about the big point where I think it's going to hit between 4,000 to 4,100. I think I'm done with this video. As I mentioned, a couple of videos coming in the next 7 days. If you want to stay updated, please hit the subscribe button. And don't forget, I want to hear your opinions as well. Give me your questions, give me your comments, and give me all the love in the world. That's basically what I want. Thanks, guys. Stay safe, stay informed. Speak soon.